In tonight's news edition, His Majesty the King says Jordan, as custodian of holy sites in Jerusalem, will continue to carry out this historic and religious role. The U.S. Secretary of State expresses cautious hope to defuse Palestinian-Israeli violence that has killed nearly 60 people this month. And the Russian president says the Syrian leadership must establish contact with opposition forces that are ready for dialogue. Good evening and very warm welcome to the news. His Majesty the King vowed Jordan will continue to carry out its historic religious duty of defending Jerusalem, reiterating the Hashemites' role as custodians of the Islamic and Christian holy sites in the Holy City. King Abdullah warned during a meeting with UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon against any attempt to change the status quo at Al-Aqsa Mosque and Haram Sharif compound. Achieving just and comprehensive peace, according to the two-state solution, His Majesty pointed out, is the key for an exile or exit from all the crises in the region, which requires a collective effort towards that end. The UN chief, who earlier held 2 days of talks with Israeli and Palestinian officials, briefed the king on his latest peace bid while emphasizing Jordan's role and the Hashemite custody over Jerusalem's holy sites. The UN chief said the world community had a responsibility to find a just and comprehensive solution to the Palestinian cause. The king and the UN Secretary General warned that the lack of a vision for a solution to the Palestinian-Israeli conflict would exacerbate tension, feed religious conflict, and lead to an explosion that would affect all. Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Nasser Judi addressed a United Nations Security Council session to discuss the recent spate of violence between Israel and the Palestinians, where many people were killed over the past weeks. Judi reiterated Jordan's support for the Palestinian cause, stressing that a just solution that guarantees the Palestinians' rights is a Jordanian higher interest. Judi warned against the unilateral Israeli actions at Al-Aqsa Mosque in occupied East Jerusalem, which will lead to more violence in a region already in turmoil. The minister said the region will have no peace or stability unless a just solution for the Palestinian cause is found.
This session of the Security Council on the state in the Middle East, including the Palestinian cause, convenes at a time the whole of the Middle East is reeling from escalating tensions, turbulence and challenges. These seriously threaten not just international peace and security, but peace and security in the region as well. This session is being held to sense how grave the situation in Palestine and the occupied Al-Aqsa Mosque is. The position of Jordan under the leadership of His Majesty the King is summarized in ending the occupation and setting up an independent Palestinian state along the June 4, 1967 lines, with East Jerusalem as its capital. Added to that are the issues of Jerusalem, security, refugees and water. The explosion in Palestine heralds in a religious war whose consequences will extend beyond the Palestinian territories.
U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry voiced cautious hope there may be a way to defuse Israeli-Palestinian violence that has killed nearly 60 people this month. The European Union's top diplomat also said she discussed concrete steps with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to calm tensions between Israelis and Palestinians. This report has more.
The deadly wave of Israeli-Palestinian violence was the focus as U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu met in Berlin. Kerry said the talks with Netanyahu gave him a cautious measure of optimism that tensions between Palestinians and Israelis could be diffused.
I come directly from several hours of conversation with Prime Minister Netanyahu, and I would characterize that conversation as one that gave me a cautious measure of optimism that there may be some things that could be, in the next couple of days, put on the table which would have an impact, I hope, on the perceptions of everybody engaged, that there is a way to diffuse the situation and begin to find a way forward.
During the meeting, the U.S. Secretary of State called for an end to inflammatory Israeli-Palestinian rhetoric, without referring to Netanyahu's remark linking the late Mufti of Jerusalem to the Holocaust that drew fierce criticism even from Israelis. Kerry called for toning down the incitement in order to move forward. The Quartet of Middle East peace mediators will meet in Vienna tomorrow to urge Palestinian and Israeli leaders to calm down the situation on the ground. EU Foreign Policy Chief Federica Mogherini announced the Vienna meeting in a news conference with German Foreign Minister Frank-Walter Steinmeier.
I will be there together with Kerry, Lavrov and the Special Envoy of the UN Secretary General to coordinate messages, to pass a strong message to the parties to calm down the situation on the ground, to tackle the situation of the holy sites seriously and with restraint.
Despite the stepped-up diplomacy, the violence that claimed about 50 Palestinian lives and 9 Israelis shows no signs of abating. Israeli troops shot 2 Palestinians who they said stabbed a Jewish settler near Jerusalem. A police spokeswoman said the Palestinians were seriously wounded in the incident and that the man whom they attacked at a bus stop in the town of Beit Shemesh was also injured. Also in Jerusalem, a Jewish seminary student mistaken for an attacker was shot dead by soldiers at a busy intersection. Hiba Latoum for the news at 10.
Russian President Vladimir Putin said the Syrian leadership must establish contact with opposition forces that are ready for dialogue. Putin said he had asked his Syrian counterpart, Bashar al-Assad, how he would view an armed opposition force that was genuinely ready to combat Daesh militants. Here's more.
Seeking to reassert Russia as a key player in the Syrian conflict, Vladimir Putin said domestic political problems are partly to blame for Syria's crisis and not just the militancy there. Vladimir Putin told a meeting with foreign dignitaries in Sochi that Russian airstrikes in Syria are being carried out to establish peace. The Russian leader, who had just hosted Syrian President Bashar al-Assad at the Kremlin, said Russia and the West are close to swapping data on militant positions.
I reiterate, it is absolutely legitimate. Its only goal is to help establish peace, and I'm sure that the actions of the Russian military will have the necessary positive effect and help the official authorities to create conditions for subsequent steps towards a political settlement.
EU Foreign Policy Chief Federica Mogherini said it was crucial to involve Assad in a political transition in Syria.
Because I think we have learned from the Iraqi lessons that we need to guarantee that political processes and transitions need to guarantee not only the safety, but also the inclusiveness for all components of societies in the process. And this is what we're working at. So a transition where, for sure, Assad is and will be part of the starting point.
German Foreign Minister Frank-Walter Steinmeier said he hoped the presidents of Russia and Syria had used their surprise meeting in Moscow to discuss the political future of Syria as well as current military issues. While the air campaign continues in different parts of Syria, reports have emerged that civilians were making up a shockingly large portion of the casualties. According to doctors and international observers, at least 3 hospitals were bombed since Russia launched its first round of airstrikes in Syria 3 weeks ago. Moscow has defended the air raids, saying it is taking the utmost precautions to protect civilians. It has denied using cluster bombs in populated areas in Syria. According to Russian Defense Ministry, 72 militant targets were hit over 50 sorties by the Russian Air Force in 6 provinces: Hama, Idlib, Latakia, Aleppo, Deir el-Zur and Damascus over the past 24 hours. Also, the US-led International Coalition Against Daesh released a video to show an airstrike on suspected militants in their stronghold of Raqqa. The coalition said they targeted the Daesh headquarters building in Raqqa, the de facto capital of the militant group, and an oil collection point. Luay Balkar for the news at 10.
One member of a U.S. Special Operations team was killed during an operation to rescue hostages held by Daesh militants in northern Iraq. The Pentagon said the overnight U.S. hostage rescue operation was launched after receiving information that the hostages faced imminent mass execution by Daesh militants. 5 Daesh members were detained and others were killed in the operation that freed about 70 hostages, including more than 20 members of the Iraqi security forces. Over to Yemen, at least 20 Houthi militia fighters were killed in heavy clashes in the country's third largest city of Taz. Forces loyal to the government said the fighting came a day after Houthis pounded it with rockets. Also, the Houthi-controlled Saba news agency said at least 12 government supporters were killed in an ambush by Houthi fighters in Ma'rib, east of the capital, Sana'a. Medical sources said 14 civilians were killed in shelling in Taz by the Houthis or the Houthi side yesterday. Thousands have had to flee Taz, and those left behind are facing severe shortages of basic supplies. To Europe's migrant crisis, more than 10,000 migrants have arrived in Slovenia on their way to Austria. Migrants enter into Croatia from Serbia and then into Slovenia after Hungary sealed its border with Croatia, with a bottleneck building up through the Balkans. Here's more.
Tensions are running high at this border crossing between Serbia and Croatia. Thousands of migrants, exhausted from the cold and rain, try to cross into Croatia as riot police struggle to keep order. Hungary and Balkan states are tightening their borders, and migrant transit camps are becoming full. Those still on the road are feeling stranded in the bottleneck. Finally, a trickle of people is allowed through.
The camps, in Croatia are full, and they couldn't handle any more people. So I think that's the true, the true reason, and that's why they're actually letting the people on the front to pass and let the others wait.
As they wait, some sing love songs to Germany, their ultimate destination. Germany, Merkel, we love you, they say.
Now we just are waiting for the gate to be opened and complete our way to Germany.
After finally getting through, some 1,500 migrants are now in Slovenia and can resume their journey towards Austria and Germany. But migrant registration camps here too are at capacity, meaning many have no choice but to wait in the cold and rain again before continuing their movement further west.
Here at home, Jordan and the Turkish International Cooperation and Development Agency TICA signed an agreement under which the agency will open an office here in Amman. Planning and International Cooperation Minister Imad Fakhoury underscored the agreement, saying Jordan will take advantage of it, given the agency's vast experience and wide activities in the Middle East and North Africa MENA region. U.S. Democratic presidential frontrunner Hillary Clinton is facing a crucial moment in her election campaign. During a testimony, the former Secretary of State defended her handling of the deadly 2012 attacks in Benghazi, Libya, from Republican criticism. She told the Congressional Committee the attacks by suspected militants that killed the U.S. ambassador and 3 other Americans must not discourage U.S. action globally. She said the incident already had been thoroughly investigated. Clinton urged her interrogators in Congress to put national security ahead of politics.
Debate on the basis of fact, not fear. We should resist denigrating the patriotism or loyalty of those with whom we disagree. So I'm here. Despite all the previous investigations and all the talk about partisan agendas, I'm here to honor those we lost and to do what I can to aid those who serve us still. My challenge to you, members of this committee, is the same challenge I put to myself.
An international restoration team is in Cairo to help fix the mask of Tutankhamun, one of Egypt's greatest treasures. The boy king's mask grabbed headlines earlier this year after its beard was snapped off and clumsily glued back on by a cleaner at the Egyptian Museum. The team has been working with microscopic 3D scans, and now they are seeking to remove the glue used in the initial repair attempt without causing more damage. The mask was found in 1922 in the Valley of the Kings after laying undisturbed for more than 3 millennia.
We have not yet developed a new concept because, and I say you clearly why,
New Zealand's Hayden Paddon set the early pace at the Rally of Spain. The rally takes place on a mixture of tarmac roads and gravel, and Paddon appeared to have mastered the surfaces on the 2.94-kilometre shakedown circuit. He pushed world champion Sebastian Ogier back down into second, with Poland's Robert Kubica in third and Ott Tanak fourth. The President of the German Soccer Association, Wolfgang Niersbach, rejected ongoing allegations made by a German newspaper that the country's 2006 World Cup bid committee bribed officials from FIFA to win the vote for the tournament. Der Spiegel reported that among those aware of the slush fund had been the head of the committee, Franz Beckenbauer, as well as Niersbach, citing internal documents from the German Football Association. And in tennis, Jo-Wilfried Tsonga made it safely through to the second round of the Erste Bank Open in Vienna, Austria. Fourth seed Tsonga needed 3 sets to cruise past Tommy Haas, winning 6-3, 6-7, 6-4. And also in the tournament, American third seed John Isner was knocked out by Latvian Ernest Gulbis, who took the match 6-4, 4-6, 6-4. Now, a look at the weather forecast. A bit chilly tonight across much of the hilly areas and the Badia region, and moderate elsewhere in the country. Mild conditions are forecast for much of the country, as highs will be 3 to 4 degrees above seasonal average. Winds will be southeasterly brisk. The port city of Aqaba should expect relatively hot weather with slightly choppy seas. Now, a look at temperatures forecast for tonight and tomorrow. Now, to close our top stories once again. His Majesty the King says Jordan, as custodian of holy sites in Jerusalem, will continue to carry out this historic and religious role. The U.S. Secretary of State expresses cautious hope to defuse Palestinian-Israeli violence that has killed nearly 60 people this month. And the Russian president says the Syrian leadership must establish contact with opposition forces that are ready for dialogue. And that's the end of tonight's news. My name is Radl Push. Thank you so much for your time. Have a good night.